All right, welcome back. So the title of this mini lecture is the Panama Canal, and we're going to talk about 5 things that you should be broadly thinking about when you go to read more and learn more about this topic. There's a lot here, and it's complex, so let's dig in. Again, these are 5 basic things that you should know or be thinking about. So the first off, how this canal was able to come about really reflected the imperial ambitions of the United States in the early 1900s. Now, I know it's a very politicized thing to state that the United States had imperial ambitions, but the US is not the only Western power that has a desire to take territory for a variety of reasons at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. Some of this is coaling stations for navies to protect new shipping routes. Some of it is racially or culturally motivated. Some of it is keeping up with the Joneses. There's a lot of reasonings sort of behind this imperial age. But certainly, I think we all can admit what happens to India and, of course, what happens to the continent of Africa throughout the second half of the 19th century and the early 1900s is a reflection of the fact that this was somewhat of a norm for Western nations at this time. All right. Secondly, it was a technological marvel, all right? But it was really, really, really hard on workers. So there really are kind of a couple ways then to think about the Panama Canal, right? So the Americans kind of take over early 1900s with the creation of Panama itself. The French had tried a canal a couple decades before. Number of workers die due to disease, and the engineering isn't really right. So the Americans kind of take this over, they develop this lock process, and they're successful. So from a technological standpoint, it's great. It's a really amazing achievement. But the question is, should that be the singular thing that we think of with the Panama Canal? Of, oh look, it's this wonderful, technologically innovative thing. Or should we have first in our minds, what was it like to actually be one of these workers? Because it was really awful. All right, the average individual working on the Panama Canal was probably from parts of the Caribbean, maybe from Barbados, comes over, is brutally treated, it has most of their pay taken away from them, maybe gets disease, maybe doesn't. It's a rough go. It's a really rough go. Number 3, workers are segregated, and the importance of gold and silver designations mattered a great deal. Remember, early 1900s in America, the Jim Crow system exists certainly in the American South, but racial segregation exists nationally. So if America's going to go take itself on the road, they're going to kind of spread some of the Jim Crow stuff around the world too, which means they're going to kind of try to put that into Panama. And they do. The way that they do it is by this gold and silver designation. So workers who got paid in gold, basically that's a white worker. Workers who got paid in silver, basically you were not. And there was some question with European workers at this time and sort of where they would fit in with this, again, due to the racial constructions of the early 1900s. Fourth, we need to understand the importance of the Great White Fleet, okay? The Great White Fleet. Now, early 1900s, in addition to industrialization and imperialism and neocolonialism, there's also an arms race going on globally. The Americans are in on this, and we're building up our Navy. And President Theodore Roosevelt is supportive of this new American naval fleet that is called the Great White Fleet, which he will task with traveling around to a number of different nations as a demonstration of American power. So why this matters in thinking about the Panama Canal? Well, let's think about it. If you are a growing and budding power in the early 20th century, and do you need to have navies in the Atlantic, fleets in the Pacific? What role does a canal like this play for you? Fifth, by the time the canal opens, much of the world wasn't as interested as the Americans had hoped they would be. Remember, 1914, 1915, right? This thing is getting completed. It's getting opened. There's going to be a big exposition to show it off. But World War I started. So the interests of much of the West had shifted. They were like, okay, great, cool, America, but again, it changed. All right, thanks so much.